English language and composition students, welcome to lesson 26. I will be explaining the first about 7 or 8 pages of Letter from Birmingham Jail so that you can understand both the argumentative techniques that Martin Luther King uses and also the stylistic techniques, right? So we have not really been learning about argument much, just started. And that's what you'll be doing is analyzing argument in how it's constructed in your next essay next week. So this whole week's on this writing of his, this letter, so I want you to understand it well. So I'm starting on page 262, and right here we get the well, here too in this paragraph before it, you deplore the demonstrations, and you deplore also the nonviolent campaigns. What King is doing through the majority of this letter is a technique of refuting counter-arguments. He just brings up the ideas that he knows that the clergymen to whom he is writing the ideas they don't accept that are part of King's demonstrations and his presence in Birmingham. So a lot of these paragraphs have to do with refuting a point that the other side is making, or even if they didn't state it, they don't agree with it. So that's what we see here. But we see particular techniques, stylistic techniques, and this is one of them. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. This is an antithesis because of its opposition. Injustice, justice, so opposite, anywhere, everywhere. It just happens to be worded and structured in a very parallel way. Antithesis doesn't have to be, but this one is. What's the benefit of constructing antitheses? What are the effects on the reader? Well, King, there's multiple effects, and I want you to learn them because they'll repeat in future arguments, but you have to determine which of the effects do repeat. This is constructed in a very parallel way. This side seems to mimic this side. It's very symmetrical, and so it's very balanced. Most of these effects will appeal to the ethos of King on the part of the other clergymen. So how is this enhancing his credibility? If you write very balanced statements, it shows you're a balanced person. You're not lopsided, you're not biased, all right, is the idea. Well, the fact that he can construct such well-crafted statements, too, shows his writing ability. That's not the main thing, but that's also, it does enhance his ethos. But the balance has a lot to do with the elegance of the writing. And one more thing. When these types of statements are constructed and they're so solid, they seem like a truth. And we have 3 synonyms for that word truth that we'll be using throughout this year: an axiom, A-X-I-O-M, an aphorism, A-P-H-O-R-I-S-M, and a maxim, M-A-X-I-M. And all of those 3 just mean a truth that's stated, or a wise statement. So when we see these antitheses, they're performing other functions, but a lot of them enhance ethos. They do show opposition, too. They do show opposition, and so that there is like a clash, a conflict with the 2 views, those of King and his supporters versus the clergy of Birmingham. Right? And they're in opposition. So they do bring that idea up, too. So they're here for a reason. The syntax sends the message. That's a lot of time just to explain that one type of technique, but they appear throughout the whole letter. So moving on here. On page 263, near the bottom, that's what I want to show you. Again, we still have the same technique going on, paragraph after paragraph, not every paragraph, but it recurs. Why direct action? He knows that the fact that his Southern Christian Leadership affiliate in Birmingham took action was not accepted, so he is refuting that it was justified. And he explains, why it's a benefit. It brings up the tension that's underneath the surface. So at the bottom, he refers to Socrates. We have appeals to ethos, pathos, logos. Those are our primary appeals to affect, manipulate an audience. This is another type of appeal. It's not on the level of those three that are the primary types, the most powerful types. But this is when you refer to someone who is a reputable person, well known too, like Socrates from the 5th century BC Greece. He is an appeal to authority, And Socrates performed the same function as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference did. Next page. Page 264. Well, we do have an allusion to the Bible here. It's not that big of a deal in a letter to clergymen, but he's saying that this new mayor, this new administration isn't going to make any changes. They're not going to bring about some major improvement, and he's referring to the millennial reign of Jesus after Armageddon and the end times. So it's just a biblical allusion you might not have caught. But to begin the next paragraph, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Given versus demanded, oppressor versus oppressed. Obviously, we have a lot of opposition, but very balanced. Same type of words, but opposite meanings. It's an elegant antithesis, right? So we have those over and over again. But the end of this paragraph is a very interesting technique. The document that you're going to read, Modern Applications of Ancient Rhetoric, it's a long document, which analyzes this letter. It says that King's primary type of sentence that he uses in this letter are periodic sentences, where the main idea comes later or last. The independent clause comes after a bunch of less important phrases and subordinate clauses. Well, it begins right here. And we have a series of subordinate clauses, beginning with when. Usually those are adverbial subordinate clauses. But he's trying to illustrate the idea of what a person who is a victim of prejudice has to endure. They are not allowed all the privileges of those who are in power, who are not discriminated against. They have to wait. So he makes the readers, the clergymen, wait. After 10 long subordinate clauses, he finally concludes with, find it here, after the hyphen. Oh, it's way down there. Okay. when your first name, when you are harried day by day and haunted by night, when you are forever fighting. So after the 10th one, he finally ends with the independent clause. Then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. I made you wait. You can feel what we're going through. So the purpose, the effect is to make the audience wait, and the purpose is to, beyond that, is to help them understand what a victim of prejudice has to endure. See, there's a difference between the effect and the purpose. You are supposed to explain both in your essays. How a technique works makes them wait. The purpose makes them experience what a person of a victim of racial prejudice experiences. Okay, so that is a very important technique. Now we're on page 265. We have more appeals to authority here, more opposing points. But let me show you something at the bottom there. He is using I can't find this. Let's see. He is explaining. He's going into depth, like psychological explanations of why segregation is wrong, right? And so it's very admirable to go into such depth. And he has, more supportive people that he's referring to. Now let's move on to the next page. This is a crucial technique right up here at the top. It said that sin is separation, right? So if sin is separation and segregation is separation, then segregation is sin. He doesn't word it exactly that way. The ideas are all there, and you're supposed to piece that together. Those statements create a syllogism, but it's a little bit fragmented, but the ideas for each part are there, right? If sin is separation and segregation is separation, then segregation is sin. So he has a lot. That's an appeal to logos. A syllogism is deductive reasoning, right? All right, so we have that right there. So we're on page 267 right now. And we're pretty much near the end of what I'm going to talk about. He gives you at the bottom of page 267 three analogies. If someone, he says, is it logical to accuse us of a crime when we're really the victims of violence? So he has three analogies here that are all similar. People who are accused of crimes, but they're really the victims of the crime, right? So that's what they have in common. So three analogies. And then our final page is page 268. And it's on this page that you're going to start to do your work about halfway down. All right, so you will be starting with the middle paragraph. You speak of our activity in Birmingham as extreme to do your next work. But you understand everything up to this point pretty well. So thank you.